Right. Hopefully it notifies people that I'm on, because obviously sometimes it doesn't do that. And hopefully the microphone's picking up sound because the little icon's broken, even though the microphone's powered on. So I thought we'd talk about, because obviously a lot of people wanted to discuss it before that. In Ohio, it was in a place called East Palestine. That's nothing to do with Palestine, in the Middle East. There was a chemical train derailment that's obviously done a lot of damage, and a lot of the media hasn't talked about it enough or whatever. So, yeah, I thought hopefully if people come on, we can talk about it, and let me know if the mic's working or not. Okay, so if you don't know Peach, because it wasn't really, right, Mike? So hello, I can see your chat spots, Minecraft. At least I can see that. All right, Tough Doge. Sorry, Jem. So basically, if you don't know, it was I put a thing in my thing in the top of the description as a BBC thing here. But I'll post it in the chat. Basically, what happened was in a place like I was saying called East Palestine, that has nothing to do with the Middle East, in Ohio. There was a train that crashed carrying like loads of really toxic chemicals, and lots of them went into like the river and the groundwater and killed loads of fish and things. And then they burnt a load of the chemicals to try and contain it. I've not heard any actual stuff, Dark Ally, about actual phosgene to do with it. Because, like I said, I know about the vinyl chloride and all that, but again, there's a big mix of stuff that was on there. But I know there's been a load of videos where people who aren't into chemistry, and like I said, I'm not into chemistry, so I don't pretend to do a lot of that stuff. Right, Rich? There's been a lot of channels like that which have just speculated stuff. And again, as much as this is a really bad thing, I wouldn't listen to anybody that, just randomly says, oh, I know loads about chemistry now all of a sudden, so I'm going to talk about the chemicals coming off it, because I saw there was a load of videos that were proved wrong on that, where they were saying this chemical was on there and it was because they couldn't read chemical symbols or whatever, so they were assuming it was something else. So I've not actually heard of anything to do with phosgene coming off of it. Have a look at some other articles on it, but it's killed nearly 45,000 animals now, according to another thing. So yeah, like loads of fish and frogs in the river and that. And again, I wouldn't want to be drinking the water if I was there, because obviously anything that's seeped into the groundwater is going to be getting into your thing if you're drinking from well water or whatever. But hello to everybody anyway. I've got a really strong coffee because I'm quite tired. I had a really busy weekend at work. But I thought I'd do a stream, even though I sort of, didn't quite have the energy. So, but yeah. So when people bring up stuff about it, but again, a lot of people were asking me about the gas mask thing. The problem is with that, the gas mask could have been useful when all the stuff was in the air, but they're not really going to do anything to help you if you're going to have to permanently live around an area where they've spilled chemicals. So another thing there. How dangerous are the Ohio train crash chemicals? Let's have a look. Because I know about the vinyl chloride or whatever it was, which is the VC and PVC. Okay, some of the chemicals on board that have caused concern are vinyl chloride, butyl acrylate, whatever, so what's in gas mask rubber, benzene, that's not very nice, ethyl hexyl acrylate, and ethyl glycol molybdenol. But yeah, the vinyl chloride's a quite nasty one. It's the one they did the burn off with, and that gives you cancer apparently if you inhale it. I don't know. It depends how far it's got into the water, Dark Ally, because again, a lot of this isn't being covered on the news very well. So imagine a lot of it is how far it goes downstream and things like that. With the smoke and things like that, that isn't going to go too far. I mean, it'll go far, but the worst of it is going to be in the Ohio sort of state area, and like the surrounding states. I can have a look, Rich. I've seen some ones of like fairly low res ones, but I'll have a look on images now and see if I can see ones that actually look like a good resolution. I mean, this isn't super high resolution, obviously, but you can see how fucked it looks. Am I right, Darko? Just quite tired at the moment from all the shifts I've been doing. But yeah, that was soon after it. So you can see there's a lot of tankers there. I heard it was something like several thousand gallons, wasn't it, of like different liquids that spilled. Stoney, I've not, but I know he's been wrong about other stuff before. So I would just say personally, without watching it, just be careful. Like even what I'd say any other YouTuber says on it, because I have seen lots of channels that are on various things in the past that say because I'm qualified in something, I'm going to look at something about doing lots of research. So I've not seen his video. He might be completely correct in what he says, but I know he's talked about Chernobyl before and got loads of stuff wrong about ionizing radiation. So, just because somebody's into chemistry or physics or whatever doesn't mean they get everything right. But yeah, obviously, I certainly wouldn't want to be inhaling anything that burnt off. But obviously, I think most of the burning off they've done now. But like I said, the main thing I'd be worried about now is all the water going down river and getting into people's groundwater. Like if I lived there, I'd certainly want to be drinking out of bottled water for quite a long time. But yeah, there's the one. If I didn't post it about it's killed nearly 45,000 animals. This was 3 days ago, so the number's going to be worse by now. But this is all the stuff going into the rivers from it. And like I said, the thing was, it was barely covered in the news in the UK until probably a week or two after it happened. I know people were saying to me in the US a lot of it was barely covered by the thing. Now, bear in mind, this isn't to be like doing scare things, but if the first responder type peoples and all that are dressed up like this, when you see the pictures of how they're dressed up, and I know sometimes it's like standard stuff that they have this as stuff. If the first responders are dressed up all in like proper CBRN gear, I'd be quite worried about the chemicals in all honesty. Because there's a lot of things like that where you think if the people who are responding to it are know to dress like that, it's going to be quite bad for the regular people. If it's only, obviously, George, if you can't test it properly with like scientific equipment, it's not a very good way to guesstimate. But if it's only leaking if you're breathing heavily through it, that's not great. But obviously, if the intake valve already has a filter on it, then that's not too bad because it's still having to travel through a filter. Oh, yeah, the sarin one, Rich. Yeah, because exactly, I've heard quite a few people say that, but yeah, properly made sarin isn't sarin, essentially. With lots of things like that. Again, it's like if you have military grade chemical weapons that have been made in proper labs compared to somebody essentially trying to synthesize something themselves, you can't really compare the two. So yeah, but like I was saying, when people have said to me about gas mask questions regarding it, like I was saying, that would only really be useful if they're currently burning stuff that's in the air, because you're not going to be able to permanently live with a gas mask on and keep swapping the filters out. I'd certainly, if I lived nearby, keep all my windows closed and everything. Yeah, Frax, the main one was vinyl chloride, which is the VC and PVC, and that's apparently very, very toxic, as in all of it that's got in the river has been killing all the wildlife, and apparently inhaling that gives you cancer pretty damn easily, or, a cancer risk pretty damn easily, and it was much higher in numbers, than what, it was a safe level kind of thing. So again, with the VC, they've apparently burned a lot of that off, but how thoroughly they've done it, and again, even when you burn a chemical like that, it can make other toxic chemicals. Oh yeah, sure, and that's what I'm saying, that again, there might be lots of stuff lingering around, because again, if they're clearing the tracks so they can put more trains along the railroad, that's not clearing up the local area, is it? But like I was saying, there's lots of evidence of all the stuff going down river that's been killing all the wildlife. But yeah, apparently there's been other derailments in that area because of how bad the train tracks are. I was just seeing one that was from a related article, not this one, that was in November last year. And apparently that was like, they had it was just thankfully like trash kind of stuff, not chemicals. But that all, came off on the same line, because obviously if it's a badly maintained line, then it's quite easy for a train to derail. All right, Casper, that's interesting. So, yeah, have you been keeping all your windows closed and everything? Like I said, that was the main thing I'd say, is just keep drinking bottled water or whatever. Don't risk, giving yourself or pets or whatever any water that might come out the taps or wells or anything in the thing. Yeah, that's an 84 in the background. Sadly, I can't pick it up because then YouTube will strike the video. But yeah, that's an empty 84 tube. Yeah, if you're only using it against angle grinder fumes and you can put a decent filter on it, that shouldn't be too much of an issue, especially if it's a leaking intake valve, because like you said, you've already got a filter on the intake, so that's not an issue. Because you don't, in theory, need an intake valve. A lot of older masks didn't have them. It's just a more new thing, to sort of, make better pressure seals in the mask. Well, if apparently it's like Tough Dojo, if you think UK railways are bad, it's like some of the US ones are awful. Like not all of them, but apparently some of them are just like in complete disrepair, and obviously because it's all the money the companies make doesn't go back into the tracks or their workers. But yeah, I've not heard anything about that, Rich, but I don't know how well they'd be covering it. But like I said, you know, if the people that have been responding to some of the stuff are in like NBC suits, gas masks, or hazmat suits with like air tanks on them, I think it's safe to say it's not stuff you want to be breathing in. Yeah, it's stony. It's mostly like freight, isn't it? And again, most of the rail in the UK is now not used for freight. It's they do that on the roads. Like it's a lot, like saying a lot of it's passenger rail here. We do get some freight, but like I said, this is just one of those sort of crazy things where it's a fairly big thing, and I was barely aware of it before people started asking me about it, and then it was still quite a while before the news even covered it in the UK. What's this? Ohio train. Americans blind to toxic dangers rolling through towns. Oh, it's on about other trains carrying horrible chemicals like this one are going through towns. Like saying it's, this can easily happen. Weirdly, I covered that, I think, in a really old video about why you might need a gas mask. And they're saying that, like, chemical spills from trains, from derailments, or, like, vehicles crashing, carrying chemicals aren't that uncommon, sadly. But yeah, I mean, hopefully you're right in Pennsylvania, 91A5. But like I was saying, sorry, M915A5. Quite hard to see the small text out with even my glasses on. But yeah, I mean, it's more, I think, wind direction with a lot of that stuff, because it's like if you look at fallout from nuclear tests, it doesn't always go where you think it will go, because sometimes it just follows wind patterns rather than how close somewhere is. I have no idea there, Frax. I mean, like I say, the best thing I think for people in the meantime is just buy bottled water that comes from nowhere near the place. Like if it's just a Brita style one with filters, then no. Like the more thorough filters probably could, but again, I don't know, like how many parts per million or whatever they can remove some filters like that, because with a lot of those filters, they definitely do something, but if it's really contaminated, it's not going to cut down the levels enough. So you'd have to actually find out what exactly an individual filter you're doing, works against what chemicals and what parts per million, or however they do it, part per whatever in a milliliter. Or I've not used many full-on pressurized air things, Sean. If you mean like the NB sort of the hazmat suits, I used that old Polish one that was quite funny. But the thing is with those is they're not very practical because you need like a massive air tank on them or a massive PAPA system. Yeah, I've seen, like you were saying about Casper, I've seen loads of videos of people showing that you can like light bits of the water on fire in the river, or you can use a stick in it, and it looks like there's been loads and loads of oil spilt in it. Yeah, I did the other week, Mr. Big. And I did start streaming some of the first one to go along with the TV episodes, but then I got one of those copyright strikes on it where they take down the entire video, not even just say like, oh, you've got a song in it that can't be played, so I won't bother streaming that on YouTube if they're getting like that funny with some of the audio in it. But yeah, I thought today we'd do a webcam stream and talk about this rather than anything that was related to video games. So I'm still playing the first one. Again, I'm just sort of saying I won't be streaming it as I play it, just because of the fact that it seems like there's a couple of audio tracks in it that do the immediate "your video has been deleted" kind of thing due to That sounds about right with a lot of politicians, Zach, because we've had similar things in the UK where we've had problems where it's only because a rival politician or somebody else does something that the Prime Minister or an important, person actually bothers turning up. That's all right, don't worry. But yeah, so I can do a regular video on this if people would find it interesting rather than me rambling as much on the stream, because I'll see if I can get a full list of the chemicals, although I don't know if they've released them, and do a bit more research into some of them. But like I was saying, the main thing is you're not necessarily downwind of it where you think you'd be downwind of it, because that depends on actual wind patterns and everything. And I'd be more worried about the water supply at the moment and how much ecological damage that's going to do. Because even if you're like only going to drink bottled water for the next year or so, I'd wonder like how many species will just get killed in the rivers. Long thing behind you above the helmets. Whereabouts the helm, like those bit? If you're looking at I think you're looking at the AT4, but again I can't pick it up because it's not a live one because it's been shot, but it's an AT4, like a rocket launcher. If you're looking at that, but saying everything there needs to be reorganized because a lot of it's just sort of piled up now. Yeah, acid rain could certainly happen because that's another thing you get, isn't it, from burning off certain chemicals. But yeah, I won't. Like I said, I won't go on too long for the stream because there's not too much. I can update you on. Yeah, exactly, Mr. Big. That's what I'm thinking. Like the problem with doing this on the stream is you can only really do so many questions before a lot of people ask the same questions, or it just gets off topic. So I'll probably try in the next couple of days to pull up a load of articles, consolidate as much info on it as I can. But like I said, a lot of the problem seems to be with this is I think it's going to be much more of a problem for like aquatic life and like how long until river water becomes safe again. That's interesting, Dark Ally. But yeah, like I said, I think it's going to be the rivers that are going to be a massive problem because if, like we were saying before, there's 45 animals dead so far they've found, and that's from 3 days ago, with all the fish washing up dead on the shores and things. Also, anything that eats those fish or other aquatic things is going to poison them down the food chain because obviously when we've had like chemical scares with things before, often it's stuff down the food chain that gets affected, like when there was all the I think it was like pesticides or whatever, where it would then, was it DHT? I can't remember, one of those, where it then started killing birds later in the things. The birds ate the like bugs that had been poisoned, then started getting genetic faults. Yeah, by an aquifer, do you mean like a reservoir where they like get water from actual, like, for actual use? Because yeah, I don't know how the US system works, but I know in the UK we have like lots of concrete reservoirs, but a lot of those, I don't know how directly are they fed by a river, and if you could just shut the gates off to them. Because the one near me is far more, and that's but yeah, like Sean was saying, too little, too late. That by the time they start doing stuff, a lot of the damage is already done. Again, Brand, it's one of those things, like I said, it's one of those places I'd like to live, but there's so many costs associated with it, even assuming you can just easily get in. Because when I looked, a lot of it is like, you need certain job visas before they'll take you, even if you wanted to move there and willing to spend your money there. But part of the problem as well is, like, for me, because I've got chronic illnesses, that really fucks me over with the US healthcare kind of system. Because it's, like pre-existing conditions you normally can't get coverage for unless you pay loads of money. But anyway, like I was saying, what I'll do then is, if people want to see a video on it, in the next couple of days, I'll try and get more information from a load of sources, and I'll cite all the sources, in a description so people can look at it themselves. I'll try and use like proper news agencies and things like that, or scientific journal type things. And I'll see what, what I'd recommend, as much as, it'd just be, like I said, a lot of stuff like don't drink the bottled water, don't let your pets drink drink the bottled water, no. Oh yeah, exactly, Sean. There was a radium poisoning thing somewhere in America where they used to just pour the radium into a trench outside the place, like the radium that they'd scraped off the dials. And when that was eventually, like, I couldn't find the exact radiation measurements. All I could find in some of the documentaries on it was that a lot of the Geiger counters just went off scale, and the other radiation detectors. So I don't know like which particular models are being used, but if stuff like that gets dumped and then your detectors can't even go up to the level of stuff that's there. And that was there's not any uranium as far as I'm aware on that train, Dark Ally, but if you look up the British Windscale fire disaster or the Chernobyl disaster, those were basically the uranium fire type situations where you have uranium or plutonium burning that then puts loads of fallout downwind of it. But anyway, like I said, I'll be off now, and I'll do a proper video on it later in the week. Hopefully by Wednesday, I should have a lot more energy. But yeah, I thought this would be an interesting thing to do a sort of stream on for a little bit of time, just because again, I knew it was something that either people didn't know about, or they knew they're not getting told much about it. Oh, is there a uranium fire 100 miles away from you? Let me just search that quickly, Oak Ridge. And it's coming out of Oak Ridge in the UK, so that's not the one we want. Oh, the uranium fire broke out at the birthplace of the atom bomb. Hang on. A fire at the Y-12 National Security Complex in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, occurred in a uranium processing building which was constructed in 1945. The Y-12 facility was where research and development of the atom bomb started. The fire was contained and there were no reports of injury or contamination. So yeah, when they say there's no reports of injury or contamination, especially the contamination, but you don't always know if that's true unless you test stuff yourself. But I know for a fact that when Windscale happened in the UK, there was shitloads of contamination that the government tried to hide up for a long time. That it was basically, if people don't know they're being poisoned, we can pretend it's not happening, kind of thing. And again, if you look up the scary thing with Windscale is if you look up the like childhood leukemia rates in that part of the UK and just how much worse it was, all of a sudden after Windscale, or like during the Windscale factory's operation prior to it. It was something like a 10 times higher rate. It was like, if you had it on a map, you could definitely see a red spot sort of thing. And that was because strontium-90 and things like that were just constantly being put into the air from the leaking chimney. But anyway, I'll go off now. And like I said, I'll do a proper video on this later in the week when I get the time to do it. And I'll see everybody just on gaming streams or whatever I see other time. Right, yeah, but like I said, as I find out more info that's like at least can be verified on proper news sites. So do an update. But like I said, at the moment, a lot of it is speculation that's not on good news sites.